Hi, welcome to Philosophy 5 Critical Reasoning. This is Kang, and today we're going to be learning about arguments. Unlike scientists who go out there and run experiments to test their theories, philosophers support their theories by providing arguments. And ordinarily, when we hear the word argument, we usually think about two people who are bickering back and forth with each other. That's actually not what we mean by arguments in philosophy. So, this lecture, I'm going to be teaching you the basics of what an argument is. So here's the agenda for the lecture. Usually, I like to start out my lecture by raising a philosophical question that I call Philosophical Question of the Day. And then after that, I'm going to dive in the materials of the lecture. We'll learn how to distinguish between premises and conclusion. And that will be all for this lecture. Let's get started. Okay, so here's a really important question. Is a hot dog a sandwich? This question has caused a lot of controversies on the internet, and I want to know what the right answer to this question is. I have my own view on this issue, and I'm going to attempt to argue that a hot dog is a sandwich. I know that some of you guys might be thinking, clearly, that's crazy, because a hot dog clearly is not a sandwich. I mean, just take a look at a sandwich. And now look at the hot dog. Clearly, they're not the same thing. Now, usually when I ask this question in class, there's always that one person who tries to argue that a hot dog is not a sandwich, and their line of reasoning goes roughly like this. In order for something to be a sandwich, it has to be such that it's a thing that has two separate slices of bread with some filling in between. And a hot dog does not fit this description. As you can see, the bun of the hot dog is connected and not separate. So a hot dog is not a sandwich because it's not a thing that has two separate slices of bread. So far so good, but the problem with this line of argument is that it relies, I think, on a false characterization of what a sandwich is. So according to this definition of what a sandwich is, it's a thing that has two separate slices of bread with some filling in between. The problem, though, is that we can find clear counterexample to this definition of sandwich. For instance, a Subway sandwich. A Subway sandwich doesn't fit the description or this definition of a sandwich. And so if this definition of a sandwich was correct, then a Subway sandwich doesn't really count as a sandwich. So I think there's something unsatisfactory about the line of argument here. But first thing first, what's an argument? Basically, to give an argument is to give a set of reasons or evidence in support of some claim or conclusion. In philosophy, we use the word argument as a kind of technical term. An argument is a series of statements or claims where one main conclusion is supported by a set of premises. The conclusion of the argument is the main claim that you're trying to persuade people or trying to convince people to accept. And the premises are those claims that purport to support the conclusion. So let me just give you an example of an argument. I hereby present to you my argument for the conclusion that a hot dog is a sandwich, and I'm going to call this the sandwich dog argument. Premise 1. A Subway is a sandwich. Premise 2. A hot dog and a Subway are similar in all the relevant respects. Premise 3. If a Subway is a sandwich and a hot dog and a Subway are similar in all the relevant respects, then a hot dog is also a sandwich. Conclusion. A hot dog is also a sandwich. Now the conclusion of this argument logically follows from the set of premises here. And in the next lecture, you will learn why. For now, the thing I want you guys to focus on is the idea that this is an argument. It has a conclusion and a set of premises that's supposed to provide support for the conclusion. Let me now provide support for the premises. Premise 1 says that a Subway is a sandwich. That seems true. Premise 2 says that a hot dog and a Subway are similar in the relevant respects. And what do I mean by that? Well, both a hot dog and a sandwich are just things that have a bun with some filling in between. Just take a look at them. They look very similar. So the thought is, if we're going to call a Subway a sandwich, and if a Subway and a hot dog are similar in that they're both things that have a bun with some filling in between, then it seems that we should also claim that a hot dog is a sandwich. So there you go. That's my argument for why a hot dog is a sandwich. If you disagree with the conclusion, then you have to engage with the premises. You have to point out which premise you think is not compelling or not true. You have to provide reasons to reject the premise. In other words, I'm asking you guys to present me with objections to this argument. And in this class, we're going to learn how to provide objections. More on that later. The main takeaway from this lecture is that an argument is a set of claims or statement with one main conclusion that's being supported by the premises. I had given you one example of an argument, and I'm inviting you guys to present your own arguments for why you think a hot dog is a sandwich or not a sandwich. Also, it would be cool if you guys can tell me what this is and what this is. Are they sandwiches? Okay, jokes aside, the very important point here is that you will need to be able to distinguish between premises and conclusion. So I'm going to give you an exercise. I'm going to have you read the following passage, and I'm going to ask you to identify what the conclusion of the passage is and what are its premises. So pause the video, read the passage, and try to identify the main conclusion of the passage. Ask yourself, what's the one thing that the author of this passage is trying to convince you of? Okay, ready? Pause. Unpause. I'm going to review the answer. The first sentence is the main conclusion of the argument. As you can see, the first sentence is trying to convince the audience of something they should do, namely, spending the night in Santa Cruz. The remaining sentences are supposed to provide support for that conclusion, reasons to accept the conclusion as true. Once we have identified the main conclusion and the set of premises, the next skill that we will learn is to reconstruct this argument in standard form. In philosophy, there are two ways to present an argument. You can present an argument informally, or you can present it in standard form, using numbered premises. So now let me illustrate how I reconstruct this argument, this passage, into standard form. And here it is. Alright guys, so just to summarize the main takeaway from this video lecture. First, an argument is a set of statements with one conclusion that's being supported by the premises. Second, you need to develop your ability to identify and distinguish between premises and conclusion of an argument. And three, you will also need to develop your ability to reconstruct arguments into standard forms. And these skills are crucial to your success in this class. So make sure you take the time to review this video lecture, ask me any question via email if you have any, ask your TA. We'll give you more exercises so you can work on developing these skills. And that's it for this video lecture, guys. Until next time, stay healthy.